The next several lessons you're going to do are going to revolve around payments and interest. So we need to talk about what those mean. Now, payments, that's when you take on something really big, like a house or a car that's just too big to pay at one time, and you split it up over monthly installments. Now, these can go on for years. A house could take 30 years to pay off. Cars usually take around 5, but you can vary that a little bit too. Like usually 3 to 7 is kind of the window. So it's going to take years. You're going to pay a bit each month. That's a payment plan. Right? Now, there's going to be interest in that. If I'm the bank and I'm giving you the money, I want something in return. So I'm going to make money off of giving you money. That's what interest is. So suppose you owe $1,000. You borrowed $1,000 from the bank. But they didn't give it to you for free. They're going to charge you 3% interest. How much interest do you pay? There's a lot of percentages here. So you're going to take the $1,000 and take 3% of it, times 3 divided by 100. And that's going to be $30. So you put that in the calculator, you paid $30 in interest. That's what you call simple interest. What we're going to deal with is a little more realistic, so it's going to be a more involving formula. So let me pose a question to you to think about. Let's suppose you're going to buy a car for $10,000, so not a super expensive car, but definitely not cheap either. You're going to finance this thing for 5 years, and you're going to get 3% interest, which is honestly pretty good. If you can get 3% interest, that's a pretty good deal. So how much will you pay? Well, you're going to pay monthly payments, and the more of this car you pay for, the less interest you pay each month. So there's a lot of things that constantly change here. So it's not as simple as just take 10,000 multiplied by 3% and you're done. It's a lot more involving than that. So we do have a formula we're going to use. Let me run through that with you. Again, this will be the main thing you're going to use for the next several lessons, probably for about a month or so at least. This is pretty much all you're going to do. So your amount that you end up paying in the end, your final amount paid, is equal to P in principal. That's how much you borrowed in the beginning. 1 plus R over N. Okay, R is your interest rate, but you have to make that a decimal. In other words, take that percent divided by 100. If you don't do that, it's going to really mess things up. N is the number of times you pay interest. I'm pretty confident everything we do is going to be 12 because you're going to do monthly payments. Every once in a while you'll see something slightly different in the real world, but it's pretty much always going to be 12. And then T is the number of years that you're going to pay for the loan. Now, if you're kind of clever, you see this coming. Let's say we do a 5-year loan. 12 times 5 is 60. There are 60 months in 5 years. So a shortcut that will help you on some of these problems we're going to do, when you see N times T up there as a power, that's the number of months that you're paying on your loan. So if I tell you how many months you're going to finance something, which a lot of financing plans, they tell you the number of months, not the number of years, you can just put the number of months right there. That's a shortcut. You don't have to do that, but it might be helpful to you. So let's come back to that question and see if we can figure it out. Here's your formula. You bought a car for $10,000. You're going to finance it for 5 years at 3% interest. How much will you pay? And eventually we're going to look at the monthly payment. But let's figure out how much we're going to pay first. So we got $10,000 we borrowed. That's your principal. All right, we're going to finance it for 5 years, but that's not going to show up till the very end there. 3% interest. So as a decimal, if you divide that by 100, it's 0.03. Make sure you do that right. 12 times a year. N is the number of times we make payments. Once we got a monthly payment here. And we're going to do same N is right here, and it's for 5 years. Now, if you realize that's a 60-month payment plan, you can put 60 here and skip the 12 times 5. But this will be good enough. So I'm going to start off with the calculator, and then I'm going to go to Desmos, and then we'll go to the spreadsheet. I'm going to show you 3 different ways to calculate this depending on what tools you have available to you, or what you're more comfortable doing. All of you have access to spreadsheets and to Desmos, and if you have a calculator, you may find that easier to use. So I'm going to start with the calculator, because that's what I've got handy. So it's 10,000 times 1 plus, and I'm going to do the alpha y equals thing to pull up a fraction. And we'll put 0.03 on top, and we'll put the 12 on the bottom. carat for a power, and then it was 12 months times 5 years. So the total I'm going to pay is $11,616.17. And honestly, not bad. That was a good interest rate, 3%. That's really good for a car. You only paid about 11% of the total cost of the car in interest, so that's not bad. Usually it's about 25%, depending on the interest rate you get. So you are going to pay a good bit more than what the vehicle's worth, but the bank had to make a little bit of money off loaning you the money, so that's how this goes. Now, what will your monthly payment cost? Well, if you paid $11,616.17 total, and you did that over 5 years, well, that is going to be over 60 months, which we talked about a few minutes ago. So let's divide that by 60 months. That many dollars divided by 60 months. And let's see what we get. That'll be our monthly payment. So $193.60. What you'll end up doing with these next few lessons, we're going to play around with, as you change different factors of the formula, how does that impact what you pay in total, and how does it impact your monthly payment? Different people care about different things. Some people only care about what happens 1 month at a time. Some people care about the overall total. What am I paying in the end? So depending on kind of where you fall there, that will depend on what you want to do, what kind of price range you're looking at for a vehicle, what kind of interest rates you're going to be looking at. So after you play around with those factors, hopefully you get a better idea of kind of what you're going to be going for when you actually take out a loan for something in real life. All right, let's do one more of these. So you buy a car for $20,000, finance it for 84 months, so that's going to be a 7-year loan, 4% interest. Okay. So just put in perspective as we're moving along here. We paid about 11% interest in the end on that first vehicle. So if we did the same thing here, we're looking at about $2,200 in interest, about $22,000 roughly in the end. So let's just see how it compares once we get through all this. We're going to finance it for a little bit longer, and it's going to be a little bit higher interest rate. We didn't do as well for the interest rate here. So again, $20,000 is your principal, 1 plus your rate as a decimal, so 0.04, over 12. And then 12 times the number of years. Now this time I kind of mixed it up a little bit. So let me erase that. I gave you the number of months. So let me flash back for just a second. Because if you get the number of months, that NT part up there, you can just substitute that for the number of months. So since I was given 84 months, I can just take this NT out and put 84 there. And that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to put an 84 up here, since it was 84 months. Okay, so I got everything in the calculator, 20,000, 1 plus 0.04 divided by 12, and I just went straight to 84 there, since we know that's how many months we're going to finance this car for. And remember, we said about 22,000 is what we could expect if it was the same scenario as the first one, so let's see what happens here. This one's going to cost me a good bit more. So I'm paying almost a fourth of the price of the car, actually a little bit more than that, in interest. It's pretty typical. The longer you make these payments for, the more you're going to pay. And that's something you're going to play around with. But for now, $26,450.28. So now that I've got my total, I'm going to figure out what happens if I pay that over the course of 84 months. So I take that total I paid and divide it by how many months I'm going to pay for it. So that's what I'm paying for, and I'm paying over 84 equal payments, so let's log it divided by 84. So if I take that number, divide by 84, I get $314.88. So that means that each month, I'm going to pay $314.88 to pay off this car.